to New York now because it was a dramatic day in court on Tuesday as the adult film star Stormy Daniels took the stand in the hush money trial of former President Donald Trump. Prosecutors allege that in the run-up to the 2016 presidential election, Mr. Trump and his then lawyer Michael Cohen plotted to bury stories that could thwart his Republican presidential bid, which included paying Ms. Daniels $130,000 less than 2 weeks before the votes to prevent her from going public about the alleged sexual liaison.
This was a very big day, a very revealing day. As you see, their case is totally falling apart. They have nothing on books and records, and even something that should bear very little relationship to the case. It's just a disaster for the DA, for the Soros-backed DA. It's a disaster. This whole case is just a disaster. If you read the legal scholars, you'll see, because they're writing about it, they've never seen anything quite like it. And neither have I. I should be out campaigning right now. We're leading in all the polls. I'd like to be campaigning. We'll be leading by a lot more. But I just want to appreciate the job you're doing. It's not easy standing there all day waiting, but you're hearing the same things that we're hearing. On another matter, as you know, it's Biden's backers that seem to be funding what's going on with the Palestinians. They're probably not Palestinians, they're agitators, bad agitators, really bad. And I think our government ought to find out who they are, where they're from, and treat them the same way as they do the J6 hostages. You got to treat them the same way. These are agitators. They're really hurting our country. It's happening all over the country in cities. You saw what happened last night at the Metropolitan Museum. These are agitators. And in some of the colleges, I think it's about 20% student and 80% others.
Donald Trump. Well, for more on this, I'm joined now on the line from Dallas, Texas, by the global affairs analyst and member of the Republican Party, Ejike Okpa, who happens to have a Nigerian name. So good to see the Nigerians and the Americans blending in one political party. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Let me start by asking you what you make of Stormy Daniels' testimony. Was it more detailed and more salacious, perhaps, than you were expecting?
Yeah, thank you, Charles, for having me. I'm Nigerian. I'm a Wawa boy, born and raised in Enugu. So I'm a Republican by choice. Back to your question about, what Stormy Daniels said. Of course, she has to and make it as emotional, seditious, and damaging as she thinks until, she's going to get cross-examined. And then when that happens, then we'll see how credible her point of views are, because we just heard from one side.
Well, actually, that's a good point. But based on that one side that we heard, was there, as some have suggested, an undercurrent of non-consensualness that's emerged, and her description of their encounter seemed to fit the description from many of the women who've been coming forward and saying they've been abused by President Trump?
Again, it's one side of the story. She wasn't raped. She went into this, with all her mind and consciousness. Before that time, she wanted to know Trump and know Trump the way she's describing him. But, this is not new. Clinton had a story like that. So many other people who have ascended to the position of president have had people showing up. It's called a catch and kill thing. There's nothing illegal about it. Hush money is not illegal. There was no crime intended. There was not the public has not lost anything because of the act of two individuals who for exchange of something valuable engaged in a conduct. The reason this is being said or being put out there is because the Democrats are afraid of Trump, and they throw everything at him in order to see they can damage him. But since they've been doing this, The man has behaved like a freshly poured concrete. He gets stronger every time, and he soars in the polls, and he's been raising money. So let's see what the court does. Even if the court were to convict him, he still has the right of appeal, and that appeal again we know going on, beyond the November election. But this is very hurting, and it damages the reputation of America. You think is a fair and just society, but the witch hunting, the bitterness, oftentimes that we see in our political landscape, it makes makes what happens, a child's play. But thank God we're not shooting people. We use the court system and we use the media, and the Democrats control the media. So they're the ones that are making sure that this story is in front and center. But for those of us who are Republican, who are committed to making America great, they get discouraged. We're just waiting for this process to be over with.
Well, I mean, obviously, you would say the things you said, wouldn't you? You're a Republican, and your sort of principle is in court. But I mean, being as objective as possible, how do you think her testimony will affect or hurt Mr. Trump's case? Because on the face of it, the only function of her testimony appears to be to give credence to the fact that she has a story that he was paying her off not to tell that story.
Well, again, I had my earlier comment. That's what they call, you can Google it, it's called catch and kill. And catch and kill is not an illegal act. In fact, there is no codified law that says such a thing. It is criminal to where it has to be investigated. Remember, Trump is not running for a state election. This case is being investigated. Aggressive, zealous DA. If he was something that had a federal inkling to it, it would have been taken on by the FBI and it would have been a federal case. So just like what happened in Georgia that we see now, this is caught up in all kinds of issues with the DA and her former prosecutor. So I don't know what the outcome is going to be. It could be a guilt. He's not going to go to jail. Because if you look at the law itself, it's a fine. It's something they're going to say, okay, fine, here's the fine, but it will be a slight on him. But that slight is not going to damage him. The polls again is showing people are giving him money, donation, which is sometimes an indication of, belief in the candidate or the candidacy.
I mean, can I just make a point here, Mr. Okpa? Because the actual issue of the trial has to do with whether or not he did not authorize these payments and sign these checks. Whether he did or did not authorize these payments and sign these checks, knowing that they were going to her, and he deliberately falsified what they were about in order to hide them. That's the crux of the case.
Yes, again, that is what the side is saying. But remember, there's an NDA, and an NDA is an agreement between two parties, and those two parties have signed on not to. The source of the money is totally irrelevant. What matters is that there's an NDA which that herself agreed to, or through her own attorney, and Trump through his own side, agreed to get that thing done. The money, it wasn't for something like drug dealing. It wasn't to damage anybody. It was, again, a catch and kill kind of things that everybody has done it. Clinton did it when he was running for president, because he was governor in Arkansas, and some other lady showed up that went away. So you go deeper into this sort of behavior. As much as you may have a public appearance of being bad, it's not illegal. It's not an illegal conduct.
Okay, So I mean, we're almost out of time. I apologize for interrupting you, but we're almost out of time. What do you reckon will happen next? Because I mean, the main witness that everyone is anticipating hearing is Michael Cohen, and whether he seems credible to the jury is going to be the most important part of the case.
Well, I mean, Michael is an ex-con. He's been convicted for some other thing other than, what he's trying to say in this case. So he's not credible. What I think is, again, I'm not a member of the jury. I'm not in court every day listening to this. One thing is going to happen. He's convicted. When and if he's convicted, go to jail, then he's going to appeal it. And that appeal, is going to take as long as, the appeal court is willing to hear it. But again, we have election coming in November, and the time is of the essence. They're going to make a ruling sooner or later. I think, my thing is Trump is going to be triumphant and he's going to prevail. Again, he's the only Republican Party. In fact, he's the only American who can stand to all this stuff and still be standing and smiling. Everybody else would have cowered, cut a deal, and moved on or done something. So I appreciate a man who has the balls, excuse the use of that expression, has the balls to stand up to what we know is a witch hunt.
Well, he's certainly got a cheerleader in you. I want to thank you very much indeed. Ejike Okpa is the Global Affairs Analyst, and he's a member of the Republican Party, and he was talking to me there on the line from Dallas, Texas. Thank you very much indeed.